If you are waiting for the Fort Worth's housing market to give you some big dramatic sign in March, well, here it is. The market is moving, but it's not sprinting. Prices did not crash, buyers did not disappear, and sellers are still selling. But the people winning right now are the ones that are making the smart decisions and not the ones that are waiting around for the perfect conditions that may never show up. Hey, neighbors. If we haven't met before, my name is Joshua Sherman. I'm a broker and realtor here in Fort Worth with Remax Trinity, and every month I help people just like you navigate the market by breaking down what's really happening, using real numbers so you can make a very smart decision whether you're thinking about buying or selling, renting your property, or just trying to figure out what in the world this market is even doing. And for March 2026, Fort Worth gave us a pretty clear answer of what's happening. Now, this market is healthier than it was in February, but it's not hotter than it was last year. Let's start off with the actual March numbers for Fort Worth, specifically single-family resale homes. The median sales price came in at $325,000, which is down from $334,000 in February, but exactly the same as March of 2025. So year over year, those prices were pretty flat. Now, closed sales jumped from 538 in February to 664 in March, which is what we would expect heading into the spring selling season. But compared to last March, closed sales were still down overall by roughly 4.6%. And pending sales also moved up month to month from 636 to 673, but compared to last year, again, they were down by 8.9%. Days on market also dropped from 50 in February to 32 in March, which tells me that homes are moving faster as the spring activity picks up. But that number is still basically what it was back in 2025. Now, the months of inventory also rose from 3.5 to 3.8, and that is right in line with what it was back in March of 2025. And this stat, which is personally one of my favorites, is the median percent of sold price to the list price, which came in at 97.2%, which is up from 96% in February and pretty much identical to last year. And I know what you're thinking. At this point, you're saying to yourself, Joshua, thanks for giving me all these random numbers. What does all this mean? Well, it means that Fort Worth is doing all right for itself, especially compared to other markets in Texas. Now, ultimately, this is not the kind of market where a buyer can throw a ridiculously low offer and expect a seller to snatch it up. And on the flip side, it is not a market where sellers can just slap any number on the listing price and then expect a buyer to be picking it up within the weekend. It's not like that anymore. Now, this is a market that is rewarding strategy on both sides of the transaction. Now, here's why I don't think that the flat prices that we're experiencing mean that there's a weak demand or that we're heading towards a market crash or anything nefarious like that. Fort Worth crossed 1,008,106 residents in 2024. The city added 23,442 people in 1 year, and it has been one of the fastest growing cities among the 30 largest cities in the US since about 2020. And DFW as a whole hit about 8.48 million people in 2025, and that's up by more than 123,000 people from the year before. Now, this is important because when you have that many people continuously moving to Fort Worth and to North Texas as a whole, you still have a real base level of housing demand underneath the market. Now, that doesn't mean that prices are going to shoot up every single month, but it does mean that the market has support and it has stability. So even though buyers are still a little bit more cautious right now, Fort Worth still has the kind of population growth that keeps the market from falling off a cliff or plummeting like we've seen some other markets in the US and even in Texas do. On top of that housing demand, we also have a pretty decent job and economies market because those job markets matters too. By December 2025, the Fort Worth side of the DFW had 1,225,800 non-farm jobs, which was 11,500 more jobs than in 2024. And the broader DFW area, unemployment rate was coming in around 3.6%. And on top of that, the Dallas Fed is still forecasting Texas job growth in 2026, even if it does land closer to the lower end of that forecasted range. But North Texas still has some serious economic weight. Now, see, for example, DFW Airport's latest impact study said that it now contributes $78.3 billion annually to North Texas and supports roughly 684,000 direct and indirect jobs. Now, I've listened to a lot of economists and they pretty much all say the same thing. Fort Worth and the DFW area as a whole is sitting inside one of the strongest economic regions in the country, and we are going to see some incredible growth over the next several years. Now, with all of that being said, why does the market still feel sluggish or slow or like it's not picking up like it should be? Well, that's because buyers are taking their time in making their purchases. Now, buyers are not crazy for feeling a little bit anxious about pulling the trigger on home ownership, because the issue right now is not really needing a demand for housing, it's more so the affordability. It is the monthly payment that people can't seem to overcome and get past. Now, the average interest rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage was 6% around March 5th, and by April 2nd, it had climbed to 6.46%. And that is a steep jump in a very short period of time and can mean a difference of nearly $100 or more on your monthly mortgage payment. Then you take a look at our local insurance here in the great state of Texas, because Texas homeowners insurance average rate changes were 18.7% in 2024 and 4.3% in 2025. And Dallas Fed researchers said that insurance premiums nationally rose about 70% from 2019 to 2025. And in 2025, insurance made up around 14% of the average monthly payment for homeowners with a mortgage. And that is up from 10% in 2013. That right there is why buyers are acting interested in purchasing, but then they all of a sudden are hesitant to act. Because now they aren't just shopping for a home that suits their lifestyle and their family, they're now shopping for a payment that they can still afford after taxes, insurance, utilities, groceries, and everything else that seems to be getting more and more expensive every single day. And because of this hesitancy, supply is continuously starting to grow. And that is one of the reasons why the resale homes are sitting on the market for a longer period of time, and why everything feels so sluggish, and why it doesn't feel like a booming market, even though it kind of on paper is. And on top of that, DFW builders authorized around 4,053 housing units in January of this year. Now, that doesn't actually mean that we're going to be drowning in inventory. Oddly enough, on paper, we're still technically in a housing shortage. It does mean, however, that buyers finally have a little bit more options to choose from and a little bit more affordable options, seeing how those big box builders can be offering pretty amazing incentive, lowering down interest rates to nearly 3.99%, saving you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on your mortgage. And honestly, that is one big reason why Fort Worth looks the way that it does right now. Buyers have more choices, and the higher cost of living plus carrying costs are keeping those prices from skyrocketing, but the demand for housing is still high enough that their prices aren't plummeting either. It's just creating a more neutral and stabilized market, which after the last several years and all the national and local news and headlines telling you this and that, it doesn't sit well with people that we're now just in a neutral market. They want it to be a great market, especially if you're a seller, so they can sell above the asking price, or they want it to be a terrible market like buyers so they can get a great deal that everyone is after. But it is neither of those things. It is just kind of neutral. It is just normal. It is just coasting along. And especially because all the hustle and bustle that I experienced for the last several years, it feels odd. But again, on paper, technically, we're still doing really good. If you're a buyer, here's my honest take on the market. This is actually a pretty workable market, especially for the next year or two is what I'm projecting. The prices right now are staying flat year over year. Homes are taking a little longer to sell than in the last couple of years. And even though March sped up a little bit from February, that's probably just the spring selling season. Ultimately, you have more options to choose from, and you have more room to negotiate. In my opinion, the mistake here would be waiting for some magical perfect setup where prices drop and then interest rates drop, and then the competition somehow magically stays low and every seller becomes overtly generous, because that fantasy market probably won't happen. Because historically, if rates improve at all over the next couple of months, more buyers will jump into the market. And when that happens, those home prices tend to go up. Now, it's It's funny. Everyone wants their home to go up in value until they're trying to buy one. And then suddenly those year-over-year price increases feel like you can never catch up. You know, I talk to renters and to first-time home buyers all the time who say things like, you know, my parents bought their home for $100,000 back in the day, and now it's worth $1 million. I'll never be able to do that. I won't be able to afford a home like that. And I kind of have to tell them and explain it to them. You know, think of home ownership like a game. If you never get in and play the game, there's going to be a 0% chance that you are going to win the game. But if you get out of the sidelines and get in where you can, you learn how to play the game, like making small, smart improvements to your home over time, on top of paying down your mortgage every single year, building that equity, and then letting appreciation work in your favor instead of working against you. And eventually, you create that kind of financial foundation that you are looking for, that your parents have. And then you have that equity, you have that nest egg where you can then take it and then buy the dream home that you've always wanted. That is how it happens. It doesn't happen overnight. And frankly, it didn't happen like that for their parents either. They bought their investment a long time ago and then they held it for 15, 20, 30 years. Now that strategy is smart in any kind of investment theory, but it does start by getting off of the sidelines and playing the game in the first place. But I digress. Now, switching gears for a sec, if you are a seller, these March stats should really encourage you, but they should also keep you humble. Yes, buyers are still out there. Yes, homes are still selling. And yes, we even saw days in market improve and the list to sell price held strong. But the market is not rewarding wishful thinking. If you price your home too high, or like it was back in 2021, buyers are going to ignore your home. They're going to scroll right past you, and then they're going to tour the more affordable option that is just down the street, because it exists. The sellers that are winning right now are the ones who are pricing correctly the first time. They're prepping their home really well, and then they're hiring somebody who can market it aggressively. And they understand that today's buyer is more payment sensitive than they ever have been before. And they're more selective than they were even just a year ago. So my big takeaway for Fort Worth in March of 2026 is this: the market is still active. The market is really balanced, and I think it's stable, but the market is still being held back by affordability issues. If you are buying, there is opportunity out there for you to become a homeowner. And if you are selling, there is still demand, but strategy matters more than anything. And either side of the aisle that you're on, you have to have a game plan moving forward. And if you're stuck on the sidelines, this may be the time to stop waiting for perfect conditions to manifest and start and make a simple plan for you in your own personal situation. And I would love to help you with that. I help people just like you achieve their real estate goals every single day. So be sure to check out the description below and book a one-on-one video call with me to get you a plan in place. Whether that is 5 months from now or 5 years from now, it really does pay to know where you're going, and then also to have those steps to show you what to do to get there. You know, I never know how to end these things. So until next time, bye neighbors.